Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, the podcast where we dive into all things supernatural. This season, we're starting with Charmed, so grab your spellbook and your popcorn, and let's get magical. Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, a rewatch and reread podcast. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Elizabeth. This season, we'll go minute by minute through every episode of Charmed, giving you all the details and dive into the magic, the drama, and everything in between.
That's right. Each week, we're going to break down one episode of Charmed, and today we're reviewing Season 1, Episode 4, Dead Man Dating.
Before we get started, just a quick reminder to follow us on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review if you're enjoying our deep dive.
So we start the episode with Prue opening the front door of the manor, and Andy is standing there. She greets him, and he says, "I was nowhere near the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by." She says, "Honest man, I like that." She lets him in, and he says, I had a great time last night." Andy agrees and says, "I forgot to give you something very important." He gives her a little box, a little blue box out of his coat pocket, and says, "Happy birthday." Prue says her birthday is next week, but Andy says, "Consider this a preview." She opens it and it's a key. And at first I thought he was asking her to move in, and I was like, and I feel what is happening?
I feel like she may have thought that for a split second too.
But he says it is to the Calistoga Spa. "We leave Friday night after work. Don't worry, I got us adjoining rooms." She questions that, and he says, "Well, I wouldn't want to assume something I'm not supposed to be assuming."
Good for him.
Although it has been over a month since we then decided to take it slow, but no pressure. "I just want to be with you, away, together. Think about it." So she agrees, and he kisses her and tells her goodbye.
Very spicy,
yes.
By the way. That was a very spicy beginning.
I really love their chemistry. In the next scene, we are at the house of a Chinese family, and we see a character named Mark and his mother standing outside. He's holding a happy birthday balloon. It's also his birthday. Big birthday themes this episode. And Mrs. Chow is telling her son that there's a lot of spirits out there. She needs to protect herself. He calls her the Chinese Shirley MacLaine. And she says it's better to be safe than sorry. She tells him to have more respect for ghosts. She says, "If your grandmother was here." And Mark finishes, "She'd warned me about all the evil spirits walking the streets in Chinatown. I know. So Mrs. Chow has a little amulet on the hook by the door.
It's like a little red, dragon.
Dragon, I think maybe a lion. I don't know.
Yeah.
She takes it off the hook and tries to give it to him for protection, but he puts it back on the door and says, "Maybe the ghosts need protection from me."
Which I find that line kind of ironic with how the end happens, which we can talk about later.
Yes, absolutely. He says, "I'm 23 now. I can take care of myself." He gives her the balloon and he leaves. She tells him happy birthday. And we cut to Chinatown, and Mark is walking down the street.
Which, by the way, why does he take this path?
I don't know. He goes off into a weird alley by himself for no reason.
Yeah. Why? Everybody knows you don't walk down an alley by yourself, day or night.
Yeah, maybe he was going to work or something. I don't know. Has to go in the freight entrance or something. I don't know. But we do see him walk down a suspicious alley all by himself, and a gang surrounds him. Somebody says, "Is this the guy?" And our main villain says, "That's him. Is today your birthday?" Mark asks who they are and asks what they want. And Tony says, "You, make a wish." Tony gets out his gun, points it at Mark, and shoots him. Mark falls to the ground, and we see his spirit float out of his body and stand aside.
Which I feel like he could have had more, of a reaction. If somebody's pointing a gun at you, I feel like you're going to be a little more panicked.
Yeah, I feel like we've established that nobody in this show knows how to beg for their life.
Yeah. And then when he gets shot, he's shot in the chest. And if you look closely, there's no blood residue seeping out. I didn't see any stains on his shirt. There was no blood pooling behind him.
Lovely.
Come on, the 90s.
Good job, Charmed. Tony kneels beside Mark's body and puts a ring on his finger. Another guy pours kerosene all over Mark's body, and Tony lights a match and sets the body on fire. I think it's I would have liked to see like how they knew Mark. Like, did they just see him on the street and be like, that's him? Because they picked him specifically because he looked like Tony.
Which they don't look alike.
Not really. No.
Like, I didn't think that they looked alike.
I guess they might have a similar like body type, but that's it.
Maybe height.
Yeah.
Maybe. But other than that, like, Tony's face was rounder. I don't feel like he was built the same as Mark. Mark's face was sharper, more edge.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess
definitely way more good looking.
Yeah, I guess if you're lit on fire, then
Like, it doesn't matter, I guess.
Too much. But as we see Mark's body engulfed in flames, we cut to credits. So how do you feel about this opener?
So I definitely liked it. It was definitely hot and spicy, and then dark and mysterious, which I like combination of both of those.
Yeah. I do appreciate that they're not like trying to shoehorn in all the sisters right at the opening. Like they're just letting it breathe.
Yeah.
And I think that that is better. We cut from credits to the Manor kitchen. Piper is putting birthday invitations inside envelopes when Phoebe walks in. Phoebe tells her good morning, and then she notices the invitations and says, "What are you doing? Prue's coming down. Put that away." Piper says, "Phoebe, you were supposed to send these invitations last week. The party is Friday." Phoebe tells her, "We are right on schedule. The restaurant's reserved, the menu selected, the cake has been ordered." And Piper says, "That's because I did all those things." Same, Piper. Same.
Which I feel like for like Piper compared to Phoebe being the youngest, I feel like the youngest is always like just breezing by.
Yeah.
Whereas the middle child is like always on schedule. And so I feel like I can relate to this situation.
Yes, but I definitely like felt it in my bones. It's all done. Yeah, because I did it.
Yeah. Yes. You did nothing.
Yes. Piper says, "At least tell me you have managed to buy Prue something other than your traditional birthday gift." Phoebe asks what her traditional birthday gift is.
She's very like insulted, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
And Piper says, "A card, 3 days late." Phoebe says that she's going to break that tradition and start a new one. She's going to buy her a real gift. And Prue comes in. Phoebe says, "I forgot to ask, how was your date with Andy?" Prue says, "Great, until he asked me to spend my birthday at a spa with him." And Phoebe says, "Oh, I hate it when they do that." Piper asks if it's for this weekend and then says, "You didn't say yes, did you?" Prue tells her, "My body did, screamed it, actually." But I don't know. I just have to think about it. Phoebe is like trying to tell her that it's a good idea. She says, "A weekend is rest, rub downs, and room service. What's to think about?" But Piper is like, hello?
Yeah, she snaps her hand down like,
she's like,
stop that. Don't encourage her.
Having this party. So Phoebe changes direction. She says, "You could be right. Going away with a guy is like," Piper says, "bringing them home to meet the parents. It changes everything. You're not sure if you're ready to make the commitment or not. You know, you don't want to send the wrong signal." And Phoebe says, "Plus you need a week to prepare for a weekend away. I mean, there's lingerie shopping, waxing, manicure, pedicure. It's basically a full-time job, and you've already got one. So you'll never be ready. Not even if you start packing right this second."
And the look on Prue's face is like very suspicious of her sisters. Like,
yes.
What are you two up to?
Yeah, definitely. She even says, "You guys aren't trying to plan another surprise party for me, are you?" Phoebe tells her that they have given up on trying to surprise her, and Prue says, "That's good because you both know how much I hate surprises," and she leaves. Piper accuses Phoebe of not sending the invitations, and so Andy, not knowing about the plans, invited Prue, which is true. Phoebe says, "What are you talking about? You heard Prue. She doesn't want a party. So you should be glad that I flaked. Besides, you know as well as I do, she's going to go away with Andy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a present to pay for, which means I have a job interview." And she leaves the room.
Which clearly we now know our answer, that Phoebe does not have a job as of yet.
Yes, she does not work at Quake. In the next scene, we are at a hotel, and Phoebe is talking to the hotel manager. The manager says, "You know why our hotel does psychic readings at the bar? It's kind of a trademark." Phoebe says, "Well, that's why I'm here. I saw your ad in the Chronicle. I'm a natural-born psychic." The hotel manager doesn't really believe her. And Phoebe says, "No, I can see the future. I mean, I can't always see it. I never actually know when it's going to work. usually when I touch someone or I'm in the same general area as them, it's kind of hard to explain. And Frankie's like, no. Frankie is the manager of the bar. Mm-hmm. He says, no, that's not a thing. Bye. Next interview. And she grabs a hold of him and she says, you're having dinner with a blonde woman. She's gorgeous all over you. And then some redhead shows up. You look surprised. Ooh, she looks pissed. Your wife?
Which I feel like I couldn't tell if she was making this up.
I couldn't either.
Or if she was legitimately like having a premonition. And usually when she has her premonitions, it flashes and it's gray, you know? So I couldn't tell if she was just trying to sell herself or
I think maybe
not.
she was like kind of making it up, but I do think she's like predisposed to kind of have the instincts to know what to say. You know what I mean? So like this is kind of a tangent, but there's a theory in Harry Potter that Professor Trelawney, she's like a fraud. She doesn't know anything. But the theory is that everything she says is right. She just doesn't know it. And so I think maybe that's the same thing with Phoebe. Okay. It's like what she says when she makes quote unquote predictions is true. She just didn't have a real premonition, so she doesn't confirm it. Yeah. And the hotel manager, Frankie, asks when she can start. So clearly whatever she said was on the mark. In the next scene, we're at Buckland's in Prue's office, and she is on the phone talking to Piper. Piper asks if she's made up her mind about going to the spa, and Prue says, I don't know. I keep thinking it's a bad idea. But then I think, what's the big deal? It's not like we haven't already slept together. Piper says, you should go on Saturday. Prue asks why. She said, you promised no surprise party. Piper says, it's not what you think. It's Phoebe. She brought you a present. And Prue says, Phoebe doesn't give presents. She gives cards 3 days late.
Which I find funny that they both say that.
Yes.
And the fact that Piper is blaming Phoebe as to why she should wait until Saturday. Like she's totally throwing Phoebe under the bus and using her as an excuse so that they can have this party still.
Yeah, Piper, you better hope she actually does buy her a present.
Exactly.
But I do think that's funny because, like, how many times has she given somebody a card 3 days late that's like her trademark now? Piper says, not this year. Surprise, she really wants to give it to you on Friday. Could you please just ask Andy about leaving on Saturday instead? Then we cut to Piper at the manor, and she says to Prue, you have no idea how much Phoebe has put herself through. She even got a job and everything. And she's looking at the paper and she sees Psychics Wanted. It's circled in the paper.
And she does like a little giggle.
Yeah.
Like, that's so Phoebe.
Yeah. Prue says that she will ask if she decides to go and asks what kind of job Phoebe got. Piper says, I don't know, gotta go, bye. Because she does know, and she knows that Prue will not be happy about it. Mm-hmm. At the hotel, Phoebe is there. She's dressed in like a pink traditional...
It's like the Bewitched costume.
Yeah.
The pink with the little hat.
It's like a genie costume. Yeah. It's strange.
I put in my little notes, why for the costume.
Yeah, why is that hot pink? Phoebe is telling a blonde woman her future. She says, you're in a large room with lots of other people, lots of other women. You're standing on a podium. No, wait, you're on a scale. She laughs and she says, it's a Weight Watchers meeting. Ooh, honey, it looks like you've gained some weight.
Which she was not very sympathetic with that at all.
No.
Like, I thought that was pretty funny. She was just like, ooh, but it's okay.
Yeah. The woman says, that's impossible. I only cheated once this week. Phoebe tells her, I'm not judging. I'm just seeing. The woman accuses her of being a fraud and says she's never been so insulted in her life and she wants her $20 back.
But how would she have been a fraud if the lady confirmed primarily what she was saying?
Yeah. Like if you go to Weight Watchers, maybe it's the truth. How would I know you go to Weight Watchers? Just saying. Phoebe says, no way, I saw you, and you know I saw you. You're not getting your $20 back. If you want me to lie next time, just say so.
I love her sassiness with that.
Piper walks up to Phoebe in the hotel, and Piper asks if she's out of her mind again. Phoebe says, no, I'm the amazing Phoebe. Piper says, this is not funny. Our flowers are supposed to be a secret, not a marketable job skill. Phoebe tells her to relax. She says, they didn't hire me because they think I'm a witch. They hired me because they think I'm a psychic.
Which I love how she's trying to rationalize this. It's
Yes.
like, I am a witch, but they don't know that. They think I am a psychic. But like, how is that any different, really?
Yeah. And even Piper calls her out. She's like, hair splitting.
Yes.
Same thing.
I just loved it. And she's like, it's the truth. I'm a psychic, not a witch.
Yes. She says, you can't use your powers for personal gain, not without consequences. Phoebe says, no, but it's for Prue. It's not for me. It's to pay for her present. It's completely selfless. Besides, this is the last place anyone would expect to find a real psychic. Believe me. But I also don't think, that's not the point of the powers. You know what I mean? So It kind of is for personal gain, because that's not the point.
Yeah.
And you're still having a job. Are you going to quit the job as soon as you buy the present? You know what I mean?
That's a fair point.
So it still kind of is for personal gain.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see throughout this episode if we feel like she has gotten consequences. Because I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Yeah.
So then we see Mark walk up to Piper and Phoebe, and Mark asks which one of them is the psychic. Phoebe says it's her, and he's shocked that they can see him. And Piper's like, of course we can see you. Go away. And he says, I've tried communicating with every psychic in the city. You are my last chance. The manager comes up and is upset that Phoebe's keeping them waiting. Eventually, after a little bit of arguing, he heads out, and Mark is still standing there asking for help. Piper says, talk to the psychic, and she goes outside. Mark follows her and says, I'm begging you. I was murdered last night. I can prove it. Piper thinks he is a crazy man.
Yes, she does.
Even later, Phoebe says, what is the drunk from the bar doing, drunk from the hotel doing here? So they cannot tell at this moment that he's a ghost. But someone on a bike ends up riding straight through Mark. And that convinces Piper that he
Piper
is a
had
ghost.
moment.
Yes. And I think it's so funny because if you watch the background while she's arguing with Mark, everybody's turning and looking at her because it looks like she's talking to herself.
I did see that where they were giving her looks.
Yeah, they were like, okay, a crazy lady.
Yeah.
So at Quake, Prue walks in. She's looking for Andy. She is going to tell him that she will go with him to the spa. She sees him sitting at a table with a woman, and she says, hi. She says, I tried calling the station house for you. They said that you would probably be here. And she greets the woman, who greets her back. Andy says, oh, Prue, this is, and the woman says, Susan Trudeau. Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Prue says, Trudeau, your sister? Susan says, wife.
Mm-hmm.
Prue walks away.
Well, Andy was quick to say
Ex-wife.
Ex-wife.
Yes. He says he can explain as he is following her out.
She is not having it.
Yeah, Prue tells him not to bother.
Mm-hmm.
Prue uses her powers and moves a food trolley in front of Andy. He trips over it and lands on the floor. She uses her powers on Andy so dang much. If he didn't already know, he knows now. Stop.
Yeah.
Back in Chinatown, Piper and Mark are walking down an alley. Piper says, when you wouldn't leave my doorstep, you didn't leave me much of a choice but to help you. Maybe this isn't such a good idea. Mark says, please, I don't have much time. Somebody has to find my body before it's too late. It's a Chinese myth. At least I always thought it was a myth. It's called Daohui. When the gates of hell open. We're almost there. Piper says that she doesn't understand. And Mark explains that if the gatekeeper, Yama, catches his soul before his body is properly buried, he will take his soul to hell forever. Piper said, but you said you were murdered. How can... And Mark says that Yama doesn't care about good or evil. He just wants souls. I should have listened to my mother. And Piper sees Mark's burnt body, and she gasps and covers her eyes.
Which I feel like her reaction could have been different. If I feel like anyone normal, and I know she's a witch and not normal because of that, but I feel like anyone that's never seen a burnt body would have a more reaction than what she gave of covering her eyes, gagging effect or turning around even. Yeah. More of a reaction than just gasping and covering her eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on how long it has been there, it may smell bad.
Yeah.
At least it smells like kerosene.
I agree with that because there should have been some type of aroma, like burnt skin, or as you said, kerosene.
Yeah.
Like there should have been some type of indicator that something was close.
In the distance, Yama appears. He is on a horse, which is galloping straight towards them. He has like a mask on. His eyes are glowing like a greenish blue.
He looks like a warrior.
He does look like a warrior. Piper tells him to run, and Mark says, it's too late. You better go. Piper freezes Yama, and Piper says, I'm a good witch, remember?
And Mark's reaction to this, how he like scrunches his fists up by his face, and it's like, it's coming. Like, it made me laugh. It was a good reaction.
Yes. He asks how she freezed him, and Piper says, I don't know. I panic, I put up both hands, and bad things tend to freeze. He asks for how long, and she says, not very. Let's go. And they run down the alley when Yama unfreezes, and his eyes glow bright green. And then we cut to the manor. Phoebe is standing outside the bathroom door, and she says, Prue, you can't do this. Piper's going to be crushed, because Phoebe is blaming Piper, and Piper is blaming Phoebe for reasons that she can't go to the spa. And Piper's like, I'm going to be crushed. Prue says, the surprise party is off. She's like, what party?
She was playing very naive still, yes.
Phoebe says that the restaurant called while they were out, and Prue says it just hasn't been a great day.
Cell phones would have came in handy for that situation.
Yes. Phoebe asks if it has anything to do with why Andy has been calling all night. Yes, it does. And Mark walks in, and he's talking to Piper, and Prue's like, hey, I'm practically naked here because she's just standing in a towel.
After coming out of the shower,
yes. He apologizes, and Phoebe then says, what is the drunk from the hotel doing here? He says, my name is Mark, and I'm not a drunk.
I'm a ghost.
Yes. Piper explains that he's a ghost, and he needs help. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see him. And Phoebe is like trying to cover up Prue with her jacket.
I know. I loved that. She's trying to cover up her modesty.
Yeah. She says, well, he can see us. That's for sure.
She's got her sister's back for sure.
Yes. And Mark says, of all the days to be a dead man. This episode is so steamy.
It is. And I think that this episode was my favorite so far. Like, there's a whole lot more comical interaction with it than the first few episodes, I think.
Yeah, I think the last one definitely felt like more of a filler episode for me, and this one I was really into. Piper throws a cup at Mark, and it passes right through him to prove that he's a ghost. And then we like kind of time lapse into the kitchen. Phoebe asks, how do we know that that guy doesn't really belong in hell? Piper says that it's because they can see him. So obviously he's an innocent that they have to protect.
But I didn't get that line because they can also see demons.
Yeah. Well, they can see
creatures.
the villain at the end when he dies. So I'm like,
yeah. So like that statement didn't really make sense to me.
But Piper doesn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, he came to them for help. So, and Prue suggests that they call the police and let them know where the body is. Piper says she did. She just wants to give them time to notify Mark's mom before she goes to talk to her. And Phoebe asks, tell her what? That you're a witch and you're in touch with her ghost of her dead son? And I was like, yeah, let's do a Ghost Whisperer episode.
Right.
Melinda Warren would be perfect for this. Piper says, no, I'm just going to try to get her to have a funeral as soon as possible before Yama gets Mark's spirit. The phone rings, and it is the hotel. Phoebe says that she can't talk, but she will be there soon, and she leaves. Prue asks when she called the police if she talked to Andy. Piper tells her it was anonymous, and asked if she says, why did you decide not to go away with him? Prue says, I actually did decide to go, till I went to tell him and I found him having dinner with his ex-wife. You think he would have remembered to reveal that little fact before we jumped in the sack. Piper asks what he said, why didn't he tell her? And she says, I don't know. I didn't really hang around long enough to ask. Couldn't be me. We would be having a standoff right there in the restaurant, personally.
Yeah.
I'm just not one of those people that like lets things sit.
Yeah, you need answers.
Yeah, when I have a fight, I'm having a fight right then. Mark kind of like pokes his head halfway through the door. He's like, "How's it going?"
I love Prue's reaction. She was like, "Ew, gross."
Yeah. Like, you're no longer in a towel, Prue.
And then
Chill.
Piper was like, "Oh, Jesus."
Yeah. He goes, "Sorry." And Prue says, "Don't these guys knock?" No, because they cannot. In the hotel with Phoebe, she's there with the manager, and Frankie says, "Look, the guy's staying in the Grand Suite. He could be a sultan. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's why I called. Make this bozo's night, read his future, tell him something good, and he'll extend his stay. Guaranteed." Phoebe says, I don't always know when my psychic switch is going to be in the up position. Can't promise you. And Frankie says, "I have the most confidence in you, Phoebe. I don't know how you do it. Keep it up and you'll always have work here." We see a man finish his drink and walk off, and he leaves his wallet at the table. Phoebe sees the wallet and tries to get his attention, but she picks up the wallet and has a premonition. In the premonition, the man walks out of a building and down some stairs. He walks onto the road and drops his suitcase. He bends down to pick it up, and a car heads straight for him. The car hits him. He flies over the hood, and Frankie asks if she's okay, what's the matter? Because when she has a premonition, she kind of like jerks, like jumps and freezes.
Yes.
And so she says, nothing. And I don't know why, kind of, she didn't just say, "I had a vision," because she's there as a psychic.
I also feel like she wasn't sure how to handle the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should she interfere with fate and try to save him and possibly alter it?
Mm-hmm.
Or was she struggling about not saving him and letting it play out?
Yeah. I do sometimes feel like Phoebe's premonitions, I would like more detail, because she tells us things that we don't see. So, like, the Cadillac is pink. It's obviously black and white in the vision that we see.
Yeah.
Then she says the man dies. We didn't see the man die. We just saw him go over the hood of the car.
And land on the ground.
You know? So
Yeah.
I wish sometimes that we got to see what she is feeling.
Yeah.
Instead of her just telling us after the
But
fact.
I also feel like that's what a premonition is like, it's a brief view of what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. In the manor living room, Mark is trying to turn the TV, but his finger passes straight through the button. Piper walks in and asks if ghosts sleep. He says, "I don't even get cold anymore." She apologizes, and he says, "It's okay. It's the thought that counts. I guess it's finally sinking in what's really happened, what I've lost. Sucking down a bucket of oysters at the wharf, playing pickup ball with friends, coming home and hearing my mother's voice on the machine nagging me because I haven't married a nice Chinese girl."
I feel like this part of the episode was when I first got chemistry vibes between those two.
Yes, definitely like some light flirting happening. Because Piper asks if his mom means a lot to him, and he says, "She's a great friend, was. It was just me and her after my father died. Taught me everything I know, especially how to cook. My mom was a great cook." Piper tells him that Grams taught her how to cook. She says she loved it so much that she became a chef. He says, "Really? Ever made a Peking duck?" She says no. And he says, "It's a piece of cake. Mom told me I could have been a great chef if I hadn't sold out to the molecular biology program at Stanford."
Which he's obviously a genius.
Yes. She says, "So you can make a Peking duck and clone DNA?" And he says, "The duck's harder." And I think that was really like the flirting. When they started talking about the food and stuff, it was very flirty to me.
Yeah, like the chemistry really started building right there.
Yes. She says that she can talk about food all night long, and he jokes that he could talk about it forever.
I'm right there with both of them.
Yes. We go back to the hotel with Phoebe, and she is impatiently waiting in a hallway. The man who left his wallet behind walks around the corner. She says, "Oh, Mr. Corey, thank goodness. I need to talk to you." He says, "Do you? Me? You're that psychic, right?" "Is that how you know my name?" She says, "No, yes. Did you get that note I left you?" And he says, "The note warning me not to go outside? That was you?" Do you get your jollies out of trying to scare people, or is that how you drum up business? She says, what? I don't understand. And then Mrs. Corey walks around the corner, and it's that lady from the Weight Watchers premonition.
Yes. And Phoebe was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Corey says that she's the one who sent the note. And Phoebe says, it's not what you think. When I picked up your wallet, and then he accuses her of stealing his wallet. She says, I didn't steal it. Mr. Corey says, I don't know what you want, but stay away from us. You understand? And then they go in the elevator. And Phoebe shouts, but you're going to die. And then she kind of calms down a little bit, and she's like, that didn't come out right. Look, I can't tell you how I know this, but I swear if you go outside, you're going to get run over by a pink. Wait, you don't have your briefcase. That's good. That's really good. Doesn't happen without your briefcase. You sound crazy,
She
Phoebe.
Clearly does not know how to handle the situation on how to save this guy.
Yes. But she hasn't been having premonitions for very long, and she hasn't, had to save people based on a premonition. Mm-hmm. She doesn't really know how to communicate that yet.
Yes.
And I was getting a lot of I've already brought it up once, but I was getting a lot of Ghost Whisperer when she has to go up to the family and try to explain how she knows
what's going on. Yeah.
But I also don't understand because she's there as a psychic. Just be like, I saw a vision.
Yes, that's what you need to say.
Don't be like, I can't tell you how I know. Just be like, I saw a vision. I'm here as a psychic.
Yeah.
No. I don't know.
But he clearly doesn't believe in that stuff, so I don't think that would have mattered for him because he already thinks she's crazy.
Yeah.
And, maybe psychics are. No offense to psychics out there.
At Buckland's, Prue walks into her office and she notices a beautiful bouquet of flowers. She walks over to smell them, and Andy is on the other side of the door, and he swings it close.
Creeper.
Yeah, he's just lurking in there. She says, you of all people should know that bribery is a crime. He says, apologizing isn't, is it? Look, I'm sorry I didn't tell you I was married before. I should have. I was going to. She asks, when?
Which is fair.
Yes. Before or after the doors of our adjoining room swung open this weekend. And he says, I deserve that. You do, Andy. Mm-hmm. She says, I don't understand how you couldn't find time to tell me unless you were really trying to hide it from me.
And I feel like at this point, it sounds like they've been communicating for what he mentioned, at least 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I do feel that he had plenty of time to mention it. So I could see her frustration with this.
Definitely. Andy says, it was an innocent dinner, that's all. I've got an ex-wife and I don't hate her. Is that so horrible?
I love that he said that because the majority of people that I know that are divorced, they don't get along with their ex.
Yeah.
They might be respectful around them with the kids, but I liked how he was like, she's my ex, we're still friends, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't hear of that very often anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. Prue said, it's not, but not being honest is. Not telling me up front is. Andy says, which I've already apologized for. Why are you trying to turn this into something it's not? What's really bugging you, Prue? Looks like I'm not the only one who's trying to hide a secret.
Which I think he already knows that she's hiding a secret. I think he knows that they are witches. And he's just patiently waiting for her to finally open up to him.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a fair statement as well.
Mm-hmm. At Mark's mother's house, Mark and Piper are there, and Piper rings the bell, and she greets Mrs. Chow, and Mark is translating in Chinese what Piper should say, so she says it in Chinese. So, because he says if she speaks his mom's language, then she will trust her. Mm-hmm. So she says her name's Piper. She wants to speak to her about Mark, and the woman asks if she knows where he is. Piper is confused because she called the police. The police should have notified her. But Mrs. Chow says, I haven't heard from him. I'm worried sick. I haven't heard from him since his birthday. Piper says, how's it possible that he hasn't called yet? Mm-hmm. She's like, I don't understand what's going on. Mrs. Chow said, I don't know. It's not like him. When did you last see him? Mark tries to implore Piper to tell her the truth so that she can, he can be buried. And Piper tells him that she can't. And she turns to Mrs. Chow and says, can't remember the last time, actually. But if I see him or hear from him, I'll let you know. She walks down the stairs, and Mrs. Chow goes back inside.
Which I feel like at this point, I was right there with Piper and Mark. Why hadn't the police notified her yet?
Yeah.
Like, I got the vibe of maybe they were in cahoots with the gang member, is the vibe that I got at this point in the episode.
Well, I remembered them putting the ring on, so I knew that they were, like, faking a death. So I was
yes. And I knew that, too.
Yeah.
But my thought was, how come the police did not notify her yet after after Piper had notified them who the body belonged to?
I wonder if maybe Piper didn't say who the body was, just that she found a body.
That could be it, yeah.
You know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Mark runs towards the house to go talk to his mom, and he can't pass through the door because of that amulet that she has hanging.
And he, like, flies back, and it turns all purpley and iridescent.
Yes. He says, she's got the house protected against ghosts. All the Chinese fairy tales she told me growing up were true, and I'm going to burn in hell. And then
Which is sad.
It is
it's
very
like a sad moment.
So
Nobody
sad.
wants that.
We cut to the manor kitchen. Prue is cleaning, and Phoebe walks in. Prue says she doesn't want to talk about it, what's upsetting her, and asks where Phoebe was last night. And then Phoebe starts cleaning.
And I love how they're, like, angry cleaning, because I feel like a lot of females can relate to angry cleaning.
Yes.
Like, I know when I get frustrated, like really frustrated, I like start really cleaning. Super cleaning is what we call it in my house. And it's very relatable.
Yes. Prue asks what's wrong, and Phoebe says she doesn't want to talk about it. And Prue says, okay, you never clean, and you'll talk about anything. What's up? So they're cleaning together, and then Phoebe says, I had a premonition, a pretty bad one too. I saw a guy getting run over by a pink Cadillac. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I saw it, and I don't know what to do about it. Prue asks if she warned him, and she says that she tried, but he thought she was out of her mind. She says, he thought I was stalking him or something. I mean, how do you tell a complete stranger that you know that they're gonna die? Prue asks where he is now, and Phoebe says she's at the Hotel Neptune. Prue then asks what she was doing there. Phoebe says, I knew you were going to ask that. I wanted to get you a really great birthday present to make up for all those cards, so I got a job at the hotel as their lounge psychic. Go ahead, yell at me. Prue tells Phoebe that she has to save him. She can't let him out of her sight. And Phoebe says, the craziest thing ever. Don't worry. I waited till he went to sleep, and then I broke a key off in his door and locked him in.
I thought that was so great. like I don't think I would have thought to try to break a key in their door.
She's he thought I was crazy, and then I kidnapped him. Like, you are crazy, Phoebe.
It also kind of shows the advancement in security for a hotel, is that they had an actual key, whereas a lot of places now have the electronic key cards.
Definitely. Prue tells her that she was trying to do something good, and now you're going to get to do something wonderful. I couldn't ask for a better birthday present than that.
I love how you can clearly see how Phoebe feels about Prue's acceptance of her using her power to try to save someone. Like, you can feel how, like, she feels prideful of Prue's acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, she's been like trying to look for Prue's acceptance this whole show so far.
Yeah.
That's clearly something that matters a lot to her. So,
and you can see it.
Piper and Mark come in, and Piper turns the TV on, says they found Mark's body. The reporter says, although the police report that the body was burned beyond recognition, personal effects found at the scene primarily identify him as Tony Wong, head of the Chinatown Triad. Mark says, that can't be. That's the guy who killed me. And Phoebe has a premonition of Tony loading bullets into a gun. Phoebe says, I see him. He's still alive. Mark tells her that, of course, he's still alive. it's me that they found.
Which explains why his mother had not been notified, because they just assumed that it was this gang member or leader.
Yes.
So that had kind of clarified why the police had not notified her yet.
Yes. Mark says, I don't understand why Wong would want to kill me. I never did anything to him. And Prue tells him that he looks a lot like him. Maybe he used you to fake his own death.
I don't feel like they looked alike at all. That was a false statement.
Like, not all Chinese people look the same. Charmed.
Right.
Get it together. Phoebe holds up her palm where she has drawn 2 Chinese symbols that she saw in her premonition. And Mark says they're Warhide imports. It's a warehouse over in Chinatown. So in Chinatown, Mark and Piper are walking into a warehouse. Piper is holding a newspaper. Mark is telling her he thinks it's too dangerous. He doesn't think that they should do this. Piper says, I can freeze things, remember? And he says, but there's 3 thugs in there. She says, keep talking. He says, with guns. She says, even better. He says, they've got an amulet on the door. I can't go in. So she just drops it on the floor. She's like,
yeah. She's like, oh, I got
never
this.
mind. And he asks if she is scared. She says, I'm terrified. Trust me. That's a good thing. So she barges in the room and then doesn't even wait. She just immediately freezes them. She said, okay, we gotta hurry. She puts the paper in Tony's hands, stands back and takes a photo. She says, say cheese.
Which that camera,
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how it looked on Prime, because that's where you watch it, right?
Yes.
But on mine, it was in the viewfinder of the camera was not his head. So she was holding the camera up and you could see his chest and the newspaper, but not his face. And I was like, what good is that going to do, Piper?
Okay. I didn't catch that on when I watched it. I think it showed his
it did
face,
at first, but she moved it down and I'm like, what is happening? But then we see the picture later and it's clearly his whole face. So I'm like,
yeah, his whole body, really.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just a little glitch.
Yeah.
So the gang unfreezes and they run with Tony and his gang following. We see Tony take out a pen and write the car's license plate number on his hand.
Which that was not very thought out for Piper.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you just be like, hey, taxi, stay here, we'll make it quick.
Yeah.
And then go out there. That was not thought out.
Yes.
On her part. Also,
though, if you're not a police officer, how easy is it to find a license plate number in 1999?
I mean, if you've got connections.
I guess. But I'm like, it's not like you can just Google search it, But I guess you could just hold a gun on somebody and they will search it for you. So
yeah,
that's fair.
Yep.
Piper says she snuck the photograph. They're outside the police station, and Piper says she snuck the photograph into Andy's inner office mail. She says he's an inspector and he's very good, Mark. After he sees Wong alive, he'll know exactly what to do. Mark says, bust Wong maybe, but that doesn't help me. They won't have any way of identifying the body as mine. Piper tells him that she put his name in with the picture, and she says, Andy will get dental records or something and match it up. All we have to do is keep Yama away from you until then. Piper says, I made you a promise, didn't I? As much as I like you, I have no intention of joining you. Andy walks up and asks if she is talking to herself, and she says, yeah, it's an old habit. I just do it all the time.
Which, again, a lot of us do.
Yes. Andy says, my mom used to call it interesting conversations with an interesting person, which I think was sweet. Andy asks what she's doing there, and Piper says, nothing, just passing by at the police station, Piper. You're passing by at the police station.
And parked.
So they have a little chat about Prue, and Andy asks if she has any idea what he should do. Piper says, yeah, just give her some space. Let her work it through. And he says, okay, and then he hugs her and tells her to take care, and Piper gets into the car. Mark tells her, you're a really sweet person, you know that? I mean that. I want to take you somewhere. Something I want to do for you.
And did you notice that she was opening the door for Mark?
Yeah.
The ghost who can just walk through the car. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I was like, why is she opening the door for him? He can clearly just like phase through the car.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
thought that was funny.
At the hotel, Phoebe is waiting by the elevators when Mr. Corey walks out. Mr. Corey is immediately like, get away from me. You're the one who locked me in my room, didn't you? Crazy person. What do you want?
Not psychic.
What do you want? Money? Is that what this is? A shakedown? Phoebe says she's trying to save your life for God's sake. He tells her that she is crazy. And she yells, if you walk out that door, you're a dead man. And so he tells the doorman to call security. So would I. Me too, because you're being crazy, Phoebe.
I mean, if somebody came up to me and told me that if I were to do something and it resulted in my death,
it's like a threat.
Like, I don't know how for real I would take you. But at the same time, I don't know.
Yes. She yells for him not to go, but he walks outside and downstairs just like in the premonition. She chases him, he drops his briefcase, and the car heads straight for him. Phoebe runs over to the road and pushes him out of the way. The car beeps his horn and drives past them. She stands up and says, that'll be $20, tip not included.
I thought that was one of the best lines.
Yes.
Out of the episode. And she like takes her hoodie and she like adjusts it like,
yes,
you know.
like wipes the dust off.
Yes. And then just walks off.
Absolutely.
Without her tip, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like, see you at my table in 5 minutes. At Mark's place, Piper and Mark go inside, and Piper tells him that the place is beautiful. She picks up a book and says that she's impressed. Mark says, I wish I had a chance to finish it. Of course, I could say that about almost anything, I guess. Piper reads from the book, I love this world as a dead world, and always there comes an hour where one is weary of prisons, and all one craves for is a warm face, the warmth and wonder of the living heart. And Mark says that he likes that part. Mark says, if your cop friend comes through, maybe I'll get a chance to ask Camus himself how it turns out. I want you to reach for something. He points to a small box on the top of a bookshelf, and she takes it off the shelf, and he tells her to open it. They sit down on the couch, and she opens the box and pulls out some letters written in Chinese. And he says that they are his grandfather's recipes. His dad translated them when he was born. They've been serving these at my family's restaurant for decades. They're yours.
This part gave me like goosebumps.
Yeah.
I was like, she's a complete stranger. And he is giving her something so meaningful to him, to her.
Absolutely. That is real sweet, especially because she is a chef. So that is something that would be special to her.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the first things they bonded over. Mm-hmm. So it's very sweet. Mark says that he wants her to have them for everything that she's done for him. He just asks one favor. Use them for your sister's surprise birthday party.
Again, the feels. Mm-hmm. Like, there's definite chemistry. They would have made a cute couple.
Yes. He says that birthdays are important. He knows. He says, I walked out on my last one, and it never occurred to me that I wouldn't get another. She may not know it, but she needs to celebrate her birthday. We all do. Don't take it for granted. We cut to Prue's room in the manor, and she's flicking through channels on the TV when Phoebe walks in. She says that she's just flicking through the channels, and Phoebe says, you don't flick. You never flick. Prue says, well, I flick now. Are you okay? You look awful, says Phoebe. I know, but I feel fine. Prue asks if she warned that guy, and Phoebe says, I did better than that. I saved that guy, and it was great. I knew doing it would be good for him, but I had no idea what a rush it would be for me. I felt so good, and not just about myself, but about everything, that even in my own little way, I could make a difference. Can you believe it's me saying this?
I love Phoebe's confidence in this scene.
Yeah.
Like, as she mentions the rush that she got from saving him and how she feels, but I feel like it further solidifies that she was meant to be the good witch that they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and she's like glowing in this scene. Like, she looks stunning. Phoebe asks if she knows what she's going to do about Andy, And Prue says, I don't know. Andy kept something from me, but the truth is that I keep something from him every day. And it's not like I'll ever be able to tell him about our secret. So what's the point? Phoebe tells her that they're the charmed ones, not the doomed ones. Mm-hmm. She says, we have lives just like everyone else. Call him. Go see him. Do something. Give to get. That's the secret of life, not our powers.
And, like, I don't know why in her mind she could never tell him. Mm-hmm. Because if they're meant to be together, then why couldn't she open up to him? Like, eventually she'd have to, especially if, you know, they were to have kids or, you know, a surprise. And she'd need to fill them in.
Yeah.
So I don't see why it's so hard for her to just accept that she can be happy with someone else.
Yeah, especially Andy. Like, she knows Andy.
Yeah.
You know? But downstairs, Piper asks Mark if he's okay. Mark says, I was just thinking, walking under the stars, what's really up there, what's waiting for me? Piper says, I don't know, maybe you can give me a hint when you get there. Mark tells her that he never wants this night to end and he's not ready to say goodbye. She holds her hand near his face and tells him to close his eyes. She says, pretend you can feel my hand on your skin, that my touch gives you comfort. They move their lips together as close as they can, so it's like they're kissing without touching, and then they pull apart.
I feel like this was the most awkward scene out of any of the episodes.
I'm like, this is a ghost. He's a dead man.
Like, I get that they've got chemistry, clearly, but I just felt that it was just so awkward to watch. It was very amusing, but very awkward.
It was something, for sure. Mark says, where were you my whole life? And suddenly the front door flies open and two of Tony's men run in. They grab Piper and carry her outside, and Mark starts screaming for help. Thank you, somebody. Apparently you can't beg for your own life, but you can beg for somebody else's. Finally, some emotion.
Because he's got feelings.
Yes.
For a live woman.
Yes. Phoebe and Prue run down the stairs, and Mark tells them that Wong's men took Piper. The girls run out of the house to try to go save her. Back at the warehouse, Tony and his gang and Piper are all there. Piper is tied to the chair, and Tony is loading bullets into his gun, like in Phoebe's premonition. Yep. Tony said, the last time I saw you, I thought you were a ghost. Piper says, these ropes are really tight. If you could just untie my hands.
She's so calm during this situation. And again, that's how it was in the first episode when Jeremy had her in the little elevator deal. But her calmness is just so, like, calm.
Yes. She asks why he killed Mark, and Tony says, I needed his identity. Who else knows I'm alive? I had plans. I had a boat ready to take me to Hong Kong. I had a whole new life, and you screwed it all up.
I feel like in this section right here, not that I am for domestic violence or anything, but I feel like if he would have been more aggressive with her, like slapped her across the face, I think that would have roped that in, because he's clearly mad, but I didn't get that vibe very well. Yeah. And I think if he would have shown some type of violence or even punched like the wall or, you know, slammed something down, I think that would have really sold that scene for me. But I didn't really feel a whole lot of anger. And if I'm just killing someone and trying to run and you ruin that for me, like, I'm going to be pissed. And I didn't get that vibe really from him.
Yeah, I mean, he pulled her hair the one time and that was really it. He's not really a good villain.
No, he
honestly.
wasn't.
He's kind of bad at being a villain. Back at the police station, Andy is sitting at his desk when someone drops the envelope off. He opens it and pulls out the photo of Tony Wong. And then we go back to the warehouse. And Prue and Phoebe run in. Mark runs down the stairs. She says, quick, have her upstairs. Look out, because one of the men comes out with a gun. Prue uses her powers, and the guy lands on a pile of boxes. Tony says to his men that he will take Piper. You shoot anyone that comes through that door. He unties Piper's hands. Phoebe and Prue walk up the stairs, and Prue uses her powers on the men to shoot them back. Tony shoots at Prue and Phoebe, but Piper freezes the bullet in midair. And I thought it was so funny because Prue was like looking at the bullet like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And like at the same time, knowing that Piper's powers can unfreeze at any moment. Prue just stands there in the way of the bullet, so then it could still get her. And I'm like, when I seen that, I'm like, Prue, move.
Yeah.
Like, look at it from the side, not directly on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I also think it's really funny that Piper can freeze bullets. You know how fast it has to work to freeze a bullet?
Yeah.
You know, like she has to react in an instant. So I thought that was really interesting.
Maybe that plays on her emotions of the situation. Like, he shot at one of her sisters, so it was immediate.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe other situations, it's more of a freeze moment.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Tony unfreezes. The bullet hits a statue, and he says, "Who are you people?" Prue uses her power, and Tony falls down the stairs.
Which I thought was comical, how he was, like, jerked to the side. It made me chuckle.
He runs outside, and the police pull up. Andy says, "Police, freeze!" Tony fires his gun, and Andy shoots him. I love Andy being good at his job. Good job, bud.
Yes. And again, I want to throw out there that there was from what I seen, there was no blood pooling on the shirt or underneath the body.
Listen, they don't have the budget for blood, okay?
It's easy. Cornstarch and food coloring. Like, that's how you make blood. Maybe some water.
It's so funny. Oh, gosh. Prue, Piper, and Phoebe and Mark all walk out onto the balcony, and Piper says she's never seen anybody killed before. Prue and Phoebe mention Jeremy and Javna. Piper says, "I mean a human."
And I feel like their calmness, like, they should be in more shock, I feel like. Like, there wasn't really much emotion or panic of any kind in this little clip right here. I didn't think anyways.
Yeah. As the girls head back inside to leave, we see Tony's spirit flow out of his body. So he is also a ghost now. In an alley, Tony follows them, and they all stop. Mark says, "Wong," and Tony's surprised to see Mark. He says, "You're dead." Mark says, "So are you." And then Yama appears on his horse holding a spear. And I kind of wish we would have seen Yama more throughout the episode, because we see him the one time and we see him now, but it doesn't really feel like a massive threat because we only see him the 2 times.
Yeah.
You know, if we had a couple of glimpses of him, like, in the distance or...
Like, staring him down.
Yeah, or them, like, running, having to run from him. Like, I feel like that would have been...
I agree, because that was kind of Mark's plot.
Yes.
Was he's trying to stay away and avoid Yama. So I can see where you're coming from. I think that would have been good.
Yeah. Piper tells Mark to get out of here, but Mark grabs Tony. He says, "Make a wish, you bastard." And he pushes Tony into Yama's spear.
Which I find interesting at the beginning when I was talking about how he makes the comment of maybe the ghost should be scared of him. And here's Tony, a ghost, and then he helps Yama out and collects another soul.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of iconic.
The spear sucks Tony up, and Yama moves closer to Mark, but Piper stands in front of him. She says, "You can't take him. He's a good man. He doesn't belong with you." And then all 3 sisters join together in front of Mark. Yama eventually hesitates, and then he disappears.
Almost as if the power of 3 had some type of pool.
Yama said, "I don't really want to fight. I wanted this to be easy, but okay."
Bye-bye.
We cut to Mark's funeral. Mark is there watching his mother. Prue, Piper, and Phoebe are all standing nearby. As the minister is talking, Mark says to his mother, "All those stories, all those legends you taught me, you saved my soul, Mom. You were right." He walks over to Prue, Piper, and Phoebe and says, "Take it from me, Prue. Don't miss your birthday. Not any of them. They're precious." And I kind of wish that we would have had just a small scene of him walking to his mom. Like, I know he can't touch her, but I would have liked maybe him to, like, put his hand on her shoulder or kiss her on the forehead or something, and then she feel his presence.
Yes.
I think that would have been really moving, and I was kind of disappointed that they didn't include that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, he could have went up and, like, grazed her cheek or, as you said, kissed her on the head or something.
Yeah, just something to like let the mom know that he was there. I think that would have been really special.
Yeah.
Mark and Piper kind of share a, I wish, I know, me too, can't work because you're dead.
It was very emotional.
Yes.
Like, again, the feels.
Yeah, he holds his hand close to her face. He says, I'm going to miss you, Piper. And then we see a man appear in the distance. He's got like a little suit on. He looks very sharp.
Very smiley. I don't know if you caught that.
Yes.
Like, his smile was very plastered.
Yes. Phoebe asks who that is, and Mark smiles and says, that's my dad. I guess this is really goodbye. As he walks over to his dad, and they disappear, and Piper is crying. She says, leave it to me to fall for a dead guy.
I know. Her luck with love is just off.
Yes. Phoebe says it's an improvement. At least he wasn't a warlock.
And then they all giggled.
Yes. Back at the manor, Prue, Piper, and Phoebe walk inside. Prue says, you know what? I've changed my mind. I think we should have a party after all. And Piper says, well, I'm glad you say that because, and they walk in the living room and in there is a room full of people. Surprise! Piper says, did I get you? I got you.
Yep.
Prue says, you got me. And Phoebe hands her a present. She says, and an actual present too. It's paid for. I hope you like it. I wish we would have got to see what the present was.
I thought the same thing. Like, what? She worked so hard.
Yeah.
She saved a life for that present. What was it?
Yeah, we didn't get to see it. Bummer. Prue says that she is speechless, and then they hug. Prue sees Andy standing across the room. They smile at each other, and then we cut to credits. So, Elizabeth, who is your Witch of the Week?
So I think it was a hard choice between Piper and Phoebe for me, just because Piper, she had the emotions with Mark and, the luck that she does not have with men. I think they would have been a really cute little couple, but I think my Witch of the Week is ultimately Phoebe, just because I feel like her dilemma of whether she should try to save Mr. Corey or just let it be was probably pretty difficult for her. I think I knew that she would obviously try saving him. I think her not giving up and trying to save him was really great. And that she also shows a lot of wisdom out of the three, being the youngest. Like, she has a lot of advice for her sisters, I feel like, compared to the other two. So who do you think was your Witch of the Week?
I picked Piper. I think she really went out of her way to help Mark, up until the point that she tries to kiss him. It was pretty selfless. Became a little selfish after that, but she also had so many like bouts of bravery throughout the episode, like going into the warehouse knowing the guys had guns. They say that like true bravery is doing things even when you're scared, and I think Piper did that pretty much the whole episode. And I do think like she knew that in the end, if she is doing the right thing, then she is going to lose Mark. So I think doing everything still knowing that is pretty brave.
Yeah.
And then once she knew that Mark was a ghost, like when she had confirmed it, she was really all in on like, he's an innocent, we have to help him. I will convince Prue and Phoebe. And I don't really think that Prue and Phoebe did a whole heck of a lot to help Mark until the very end.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Like Piper went to the warehouse by herself. She was like doing all these things. She took the picture. She sent it to Andy. It was really a Piper-centric episode. So
it was, yes. That's what I was getting ready to say, is that they definitely focused more on Piper. And then I think Phoebe was the follow-up.
Yeah, she's like the B plot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I picked Piper as my Witch of the Week.
So that is it for today's episode of Spells and Spoilers. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Spells and Spoilers and TikTok at Spells and Spoilers Pod for more. We'll be back next time with more supernatural fun. See you then.
Bye.